everyone, and welcome to another reading vlog, more specifically another tiny-a-thon, which if you don't know what a tiny-a-thon is, I explain this at the beginning of all of my videos, but I never know when there's going to be a new viewer watching. So tiny-a-thons are just these little readathons that I host for myself. Usually they're like 24, 48, or 72 hours long. That's usually what I go for. But this video is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to be doing a 24-hour reading challenge, but rather than just trying to read as much as possible within a 24-hour period. Instead, I am going to be timing myself every time I read, and I'll be vlogging until I read for a whole total of 24 hours. So this challenge is very much inspired by the 24 and 48 readathon, which I did on my channel a couple years ago, and I had a blast while doing it, and every time they've hosted it since then, it hasn't been on a time when I've been able to participate in it, and I know they just actually hosted it recently, like just a couple of weekends ago, and I wasn't able to participate in it, but this is what it's inspired by because I loved it so much the first time that I did it, and the point of that readathon basically was within a 48-hour period, every time that you read, you started the stopwatch on your phone or whatever, and then at the end it should add up to 24 hours. But I think when I did it, I read about 9 hours, I want to say, in a 48-hour period. So this reading vlog is definitely going to take place over several days, but the point is just to document, see how long it takes me to read for a grand total of 24 hours. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Every time I read, I'm going to start the stopwatch on my phone, and we'll just see how long it takes. So currently it is, what is it? It's March 13th at 1:18 in the afternoon. I just finished filming a video. I wanted to do this little reading challenge because I am very stressed out at the moment due to something that's going on with my work, and I'm not going to get like an answer to my anxieties until this Tuesday, which is currently Saturday, so I need something to distract my mind, and I thought this would be a good thing to do, maybe. Or maybe it will completely hinder my reading abilities this week because I'm so anxious about this thing coming up. Nonetheless, the book that I'm currently starting off with is called Layla by Colleen Hoover. This actually just came in the mail not 2 hours ago, so I'm very excited to pick it up. I have read 2 other Colleen Hoover books before. It Ends With Us I read twice, and I loved it both times, 5 out of 5 stars. And then the other book that I read was, I don't remember, something with, you know, I don't know. One of the characters was deaf, though, I'm pretty sure. But I don't remember what the book was called at all because I hated it. So I'm like, really? Wait, I've read another Colleen Hoover book. Oh my gosh. I read Verity by Colleen Hoover, and I enjoyed that book also. Clearly, my memory, you can tell that I'm scatterbrained right now. I mean, you can tell. So, yeah, I'm not really sure if Colleen Hoover is an author for me. As far as what I can tell right now is that I enjoy her adult books. I don't enjoy her YA books, so much so that I block them out of my memory. So I'm excited to read this and see if I enjoy it. This is another one that I think is kind of like a thriller, similar to Verity. So hopefully I will like it. So what I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to edit the video that I just filmed, and then I'm going to jump into reading this book. I just wanted to film a quick intro while my lighting and everything is up. So we're not going to officially start like the timer to see how long it actually takes me to read for 24 hours until I actually start reading for the first time. Hopefully that makes sense. I should probably go now because my brain is moving at too fast a speed for me to be talking right now. So I will update you all later. So it is now after dinner, several hours later. I did not read nearly as much as I wanted to, but I did edit that video, so that has to count for something. I only ended up reading for 42 minutes, but I did get relatively far. I'm about 60 pages into Layla, and wow, this book, from not even the first chapter, but even like the first page, perhaps even the first sentence, this book has you going, what the heck is going on? So I'm going to try and give you a synopsis of this book, but honestly, I don't really want to give too much away, because it gets you right from the beginning, and I don't want to ruin that effect for anybody else. So in this book, we're following our main character called Leeds, I think is how you pronounce his name, and he was the bass player of a band that was playing at a wedding, and when they're playing there is only one girl dancing horribly to their music, and that is Layla, who also happens to be the bride's sister. And so that night they end up like hooking up, having this great connection, and they start dating, and then a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, she's at his house and someone knocks on the door and she goes to answer the door and she is horribly attacked, and it leaves her mentally completely different from how she was before. So before she was very much like a carefree, would say whatever's on her mind, like is dancing to her own beat kind of person, and now she has horrible anxiety and it's just completely changed her mentally. So to try and help her, he is surprising her with a trip back to the bed and breakfast where they stayed when they first met. So that's what I'm up to the story so far, and I know what you're thinking. Sounds relatively easy to follow, like what's going on so far. However, in between the chapters, like every few chapters, there are these parts that are titled The Interview, in which Leeds is being interviewed by somebody, and I don't want to tell you what else is happening in those parts, but you just know something went horribly wrong somewhere. And it's basically like the book is him recounting the whole story of how he met Layla up until the point that we're at in the parts that are the interview. He's recounting the story to this guy that's interviewing him. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, this very much gives me Verity vibes, which was the other Colleen Hoover book that I read, which was more of a thriller rather than a romance like her other books. So I'm enjoying it so far. I will say I started off a little rocky with her writing for some reason. Like I was having to reread sentences many times, but now that I'm into it, I'm totally into the writing and everything. So I'm super intrigued to know where the story is going to go. So hopefully I will do a lot more reading tonight than I did this afternoon. Hi guys, so it is now the next day. It is currently 2:30 in the afternoon. I have only read for a grand total of both today and yesterday. I've only read for 2 hours and 9 minutes, and I have decided that for every day I'm going to start a new lap. So yesterday I only read for 1 hour and 52 minutes, and today I've only read for 17 minutes. So it's not going great. But also last night I was like, I've only read for 2 hours, not even, like I'm gonna scrap this video. And then I remembered that I didn't technically start reading until like 5 o'clock at night, so technically within like a 7-hour period I read for 2 hours, which is pretty decent. So I'm gonna continue on because it didn't count for a full 24 hours yesterday. So I've only read for 2 hours. That is okay. I am currently on page 180 in Layla, and this book, I've come to the realization that I don't think I really knew what the genre was before I picked it up, because I really thought that it was a thriller, and the way that the book opened very much felt like a thriller. But then I looked on Goodreads and I saw that the top category is romance, and then the second one is paranormal fantasy, which now that I'm into this book, it very much is paranormal. I don't know if I'd put fantasy in front of it because that just gives me a different kind of vibe, but I guess as of right now I would say it's like a romantic paranormal thriller. That's how I would describe it, because there's like romance elements of it, but I don't even know if I'd really consider this to be a romance story. It's more of like a paranormal thriller with a romance that just so happens to be in it, but I don't know. So yeah, I'm like more than halfway through. I've only got this much left. When I first started reading it, I was really loving it. Once we got more into the paranormal aspects, I started to like it a little bit less. However, when I was on Goodreads, I read some reviews, and some people were saying that they wanted to DNF it until like the 70% mark, and then they wanted to give it like 5 stars. So I'm hoping that the ending is going to be good, and then good ending, good beginning makes for a good rating for this book. Hopefully, that's what I'm going for. But I am still enjoying it. I did, however, since it is, you know, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I may or may not have done a little bit of shopping this afternoon, because I've been very stressed out over work, and I kind of came to the realization today that what I want to happen and what I've been wishing would happen for a very long time is probably not going to happen. So it made me sad, and so naturally I wanted to go shopping. So I went to the Christmas tree shop, which is pretty cheap, so I always feel okay spending my money there on cheap things rather than going to someplace expensive. and it's conveniently located at the mall where I work. So I went there and I bought some things, and I thought I would show them to you. First thing I got was a book, which I think might be the next book that I pick up after finishing Layla, and that is Landline by Rowell. They had this there amongst a couple of other books that I've never heard of before, but it was only $3, and this was very popular on BookTube back in like 2013, maybe earlier than that, maybe a little later. I'm not sure. I never read Rowell before. I tried reading Fangirl a couple years ago, wasn't really into it, ended up DNFing it, but this is an adult book that was a YA book, so hopefully I'll have better luck with this one, and a lot of people really loved this book. So I think I'm going to pick that one up next after I finish Layla. Then the other two things that I bought, the first one is this plant pot in the shape of a rhino. I don't particularly like rhinos, so I don't know why I bought this, but it called to me, so I bought it. And I do enjoy plants. I've got quite a collection of succulents at this point, or at least the ones that have survived. And then the last thing that I got is also a little strange, but it's this little gnome, which I assume you would put in the garden, but I'm not going to. It's just going to live on my bookshelf. And I don't really know why I bought this, but I picked it up and I was like, this guy looks like his name would be Quentin. And as said by Mike Wazowski, once you name it, you start getting attached to it. So then I had to bring it home, and then when we opened it, there's a little dragonfly that he's holding, and half of his wings busted off. So I'm gonna have to try and glue that back on, but nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoy Quentin, and he will forever live on my bookshelf just off camera where you can't see him. So yeah, that is how everything is going so far. I don't actually know how much reading I'm going to get done this afternoon because we have some family visiting, and so I have to go over and socialize. So that is what I'm going to be doing right now, but hopefully tonight I will get some decent progress in. Hi guys, so it is now the next day and it is 7 o'clock in the evening, so we're just over the 48-hour mark as far as how long I've been attempting this challenge for. As far as the actual time, I have read for 5 hours and 46 minutes. Today alone I read for 2 hours and 22 minutes, which is more than I've read in a very long time. So I'm gonna be honest, it's taking me longer to complete this challenge than I anticipated. I didn't think I'd be done today, but I thought I'd have made more progress by now, so I'm a little bit disappointed, and I'm thinking I either have to make these update clips a lot shorter, or I'm gonna have to split this into multiple parts in order for these videos to just not be super duper long. But on the flip side, I think this challenge is really helping me read a lot more. I have not read more than 45 minutes a day for the last 2 months, so I'm feeling really happy with how much progress I'm actually getting with my reading. So last night I finished Layla, and I take back everything I said yesterday about this not really being a romance book and it being a thriller book. It's not. It's definitely a paranormal romance. I realize that now after having read the ending. It's very much a paranormal romance, which isn't something I would ever usually pick up, but I actually did really enjoy this. I thought it had a super interesting ending, and like I said, I did really like the beginning. The middle part dragged a little bit just because, frankly, I don't read a lot of paranormal. It's not something I'm super drawn to, so it lost me a little bit in the middle, but overall I think it was an interesting story, and I think because I don't read a lot of paranormal stuff, it felt like a new kind of story to me, something I had never read before. If you read a lot of paranormal romances, you might not have the same feelings towards this book, but for me it was something new, so I really enjoyed it. I really like Colleen Hoover's writing, so I gave it 4 stars. This morning I started my second book of the week, which is Landline by Rowell, and already I'm on page 206, so I only have this much left to read, and I think it's about 100 pages. I'm pretty confident I will be able to finish it tonight. But this book, I actually got it confused with one of Rowell's other books. I think I thought this book was the plot of Attachments, which is another one of Rowell's books, which I think is about 2 women that work in an office, and they use the office messaging system for for like gossiping and stuff like that, and the guy that monitors the messaging ends up falling in love with one of the women, and it seemed like an interesting kind of story. So that's what I thought that this was when I started reading it, because we all know I don't read the synopsis. Turns out it's not. So in this book we follow our main character called Georgie, and her husband and her 2 daughters were supposed to fly to Omaha for the holidays, which, by the way, this is a holiday book. It takes place at Christmas. Had I known that, I probably would have saved it for Christmas, but I did not. So her and her husband and her 2 daughters were supposed to fly to Omaha and spend the holidays with her husband's mom, but her work, which she's like a comedy television writer, she ends up getting this big opportunity, but in order to take it, she has to work through the holidays, and so she can't go on this trip, and she expects her husband to be a little upset at hearing that, but what she doesn't expect is for him to just pack up the kids and leave without her, and then he doesn't answer her calls once he gets there, and so she's not really sure what is going on with her marriage, but there is like a magical realism element to the story in which she uses the like phone from her childhood, the like old rotary phone that she had from the 90s, and she uses that to try and call him, but she ends up reaching her husband back when they first like met each other and first started dating, and so she thinks this is either a second chance to try and fix her marriage or potentially stop it from happening altogether. So it is an interesting concept for the book. At this point I'm pretty deep into it, and like it's not my favorite thing ever because I'm not super into the characters, probably for one because they're not super relatable due to the fact that the main character we're following is married with children. She's like 37, so I can't super relate to her, but also she's not the most likable character, and frankly neither is her husband, so I'm a little bit disinterested in the outcome of their story. I do however really like the character Seth and also her sister Heather. I think both of them are very likable characters, and it's funny because she's like a comedy writer, but she's not a particularly funny person, but Seth, who is the person that she like co-writes with, he is actually pretty funny. And I also enjoy the many MASH references in this book, and I don't even know if any people watching this video are going to even know what that is, but I appreciate the references in this book. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, but it's like not anything super spectacular. So yeah, I'm just going to carry on reading this book for the rest of the night, and like I said, either this book is gonna have to, not this book, this video is gonna either have to be split into multiple parts, or I'm gonna have to not blabber so much because this is gonna be taking way too long. So it is now the next evening. I had to go to work for a couple of hours today, so I haven't made a whole lot of progress today, but we also had some unfortunate happenings because I thought that the stopwatch on my phone wouldn't reset itself until I hit the reset button, and maybe I hit it accidentally, I don't know. I just know that I woke up this morning and all of my progress gone. Luckily, I must have sensed this coming because last night I took a screenshot of the stopwatch app when I was finished reading last night, and my phone is currently charging, otherwise I would show you, but last night I read up to about 6 hours and 20 minutes, and then this morning I just had to start a new thing of the stopwatch and a new lap, and I read about 20 minutes this morning before I went to work. So at the moment I'm just under 7 hours worth of reading. I've officially hit the point of the reading vlog where I'm like, is this interesting at all? Nah, but I'm gonna keep going because I think it's interesting just to see like how many days it'll take me to read for a grand total of 24 hours, how many books I can complete in that time, how many pages I can complete within a 24-hour reading period. I think it's interesting. I am, however, probably going to end this reading vlog when I reach the 12-hour mark, and then that'll be part 1, and then if you guys are interested, I will do a part 2 of the other 12 hours to see just how long it takes me to do that and how much progress I make with my reading. But what I will say so far is that I have not read this much in a while, and I've also not been this motivated to read, which could be because I am completing a lot of books. So this morning I finished Landline by Rowell. I gave it like 3.5 stars. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably closer to just a 3-star rating. I liked this book. I thought it was an interesting story, but it's not my favorite. I don't love the characters, and the ending kind of felt like we ended with some unresolved issues, so it wasn't a super satisfying ending, which is a little bit disappointing. But nonetheless, this is my second book completed for the week / this challenge. And then on my way home from work, I stopped by the library and I picked up a book that I had on hold, which is A House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Mallerman. This is a horror book that is less than 200 pages, and I'm really excited to pick this up. So that is what I'm going to do right now. Hi guys, so it is not the next day, it is the day after the next day. I didn't vlog at all yesterday because I did not read at all yesterday. So yeah, a little disappointed about that, but I think the first few days of this reading challenge, like actually all of the days of this reading challenge besides yesterday, I was able to let the reading distract me from my stress and anxieties, and then yesterday it just kind of fell apart and I let my stress and anxieties distract me from being able to read. I just had so much on my mind. I felt like if I picked up a book I would not be able to concentrate on it at all, but I'm hoping to make up for it today. So as of today alone, I have already read for an hour and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I started a little late reading today because my issues yesterday led me into not having a very good night's sleep, so I slept in really late today. But it's 1 o'clock, I've already read for an hour. As of this stopwatch, I have read for just under 2 hours, so adding that to the 6 hours and 20 minutes in the last one puts me at just above 8 hours worth of reading. I am really hoping to reach the 12-hour mark within the next 2 days, and then I'm going to end this reading vlog there as part 1, and then we'll do part 2 of the next 12 hours. But yeah, as far as my reading goes, just 5 minutes ago I finished A House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Mallerman. If you don't know what this book is about, it is a horror book in which we follow two teenagers that are going on a first date, and they go canoeing on this lake and they end up finding a house at the bottom of the lake that is fully furnished, and they start exploring it. Unfortunately, I didn't really like this book. I think I'd probably give it about 2 stars. The only thing I really liked about it was the concept of it and the atmosphere of it. I think Josh Mallerman is very good at writing atmosphere, but similarly to Bird Box, which is also written by the same author and is the only other book of his that I've read, I really liked the concept of this book, but actually reading it, I was just kind of bored throughout the whole thing, and I'm going to be frank with you, I did not like the ending of this book. It had a very open ending, and I don't know if it was supposed to be a metaphor for something, but I didn't personally understand it. So overall, this book just didn't work out for me, and I think at this point we can conclude that Josh Mallerman probably isn't the author for me. But yeah, that's that. This is my 3rd book finished for the reading challenge. I'm not really sure what I'm going to pick up next. I think I am going to make myself a cup of coffee so I don't fall asleep this afternoon, and I'm just gonna browse my bookshelves and see what book calls to me. Hi guys, so it is now the next evening. Yesterday I ended up reading for over 2 hours, which I was very pleased with, but today I did have to go to work for a few hours, so I didn't start reading until a little bit ago, and as of 6 p.m. I have only read for 23 minutes today, which isn't great, but I'm hoping to get quite a bit of reading done tonight because I have read for a grand total of a little less than 10 hours, so I'm hoping to reach that 12-hour mark sometime tomorrow, and then we will be wrapping up this reading vlog, which is taking me a lot longer than what I anticipated, but like I said, I am still happy with this challenge because I am reading so much more than I have been, and that's good enough for me. So I do plan to read quite a bit tonight because I am super into the book I am currently reading, and that is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Petties. I totally wasn't planning to pick this book up anytime soon. I wasn't even super interested in this book because frankly, I had no idea what it was about, but I was browsing through my shelves yesterday, and for some reason it just kind of stood out to me, so I thought I would give it a read, and turns out it is set during World War II, and it's actually based on a true story that I did not know anything about, which I'm a little ashamed of. I'm like, I don't even know if I learned about World War II in history, like, in school. Like, I'm sure I did, but if I did, I definitely, like, blacked it out, because I do not remember hearing about this incident at all. So in this book, we're following some refugees that board a ship that, spoiler alert, ends up sinking. And it was, now that I've looked it up, was one of the, like, biggest disasters that, what's the word for it? Like, the biggest disaster that took place in the water, I guess. There's definitely, like, a term for that, but it was, like, even worse than Titanic by quite a lot as far as, like, how big the ship was and how many people were killed in it. So yeah, I had no idea that that's what this book was about. But I am loving this book in, like, the same way I loved The Book Thief, where it's clearly not, like, a very happy story, but you just love these characters so much and you get so into their story and so invested in what's going to happen to them. And I'm sure it helps that the chapters are extremely short, so I just feel like I'm flying through this book every time I pick it up. But yeah, I am super invested in this story, but at the same time, I now know how it's probably going to end, and so I have a feeling this book might be a tearjerker kind of book. And I'm not a crier when it comes to books, but I kind of hope this book will make me cry because I did not have a very good day at work today. And I've been kind of like laughing about the situation all day, which means it's definitely going to hit me later tonight. And so if this book makes me cry, I can just kill two birds with one stone, you know? So yeah, that is what I'm doing right now, and hopefully I will update you all tomorrow, ending this reading vlog having hit 12 hours. Hi guys, so it is now the next day, and I'm very happy to say that this morning I not only finished this book, but also reached the 12-hour mark. So I'm going to tell you a bit about my thoughts on this book, and then we are going to do a little wrap up to part 1 of this challenge and end this reading vlog here because it is longer than I ever anticipated it to be. But first, we have to talk about this book because this is officially my favorite book of the year, and I enjoyed it so much that I think it's going to be real difficult for another book to take its title as my favorite book of the year. And I know that that's a bold statement because it's only March, so there's a lot more reading to go down this year, but I just enjoyed this book so much, and honestly, this is my favorite kind of, like, favorite book to find, where, like I said, I was not planning on picking this book up. I didn't know what it was about before beginning to read it, and it was just like the most spur-of-the-moment choice to read it, and then I just absolutely fell in love with it, and I love when that happens. It's like the best feeling ever. So yeah, needless to say, this also wasn't like the happiest book ever. Like, it obviously is a very heavy story, but at the same time, while it isn't a happy story, I do feel like it's a very kind of hopeful story. Like, I did have this overwhelming feeling of, like, hope while reading this book. The ending did not make me cry, which I'm not, like, really shocked about because, like I said, not really a book crier. Pretty sure still to this day there's only 2 books that have ever made me cry, and I have read a lot of books. So I'm not surprised that I didn't cry, but it didn't make the ending any less, like, emotional. Like, I still very much had feelings about some of the things that happened at the end of this book, but not quite to the crying level. But yeah, I loved these characters so much. I was so invested in these characters' stories. It very much did have the same kind of feel as The Book Thief. Not that the stories are similar in any way besides the fact that they're both set during World War II, but just in that way where you just fall in love with the Book Thief characters, and that's how I felt about all of the characters in this book. And it wasn't even like I was with these characters for a long period of time. Like, I fell in love with them within the first 100 pages of this book, and then it only took me 2 days to read the book. And in that time, I felt like I knew these characters for so long. But at the same time, this book actually only takes place over, I think, about like maybe a day and a half or something like that. So it's not a book that takes place over a very long period of time, but it's just, oh my gosh, it was so good. I can't say enough good things about it. Would highly recommend. But now that brings us to the end of this reading vlog. So the first time before my stopwatch decided to reset itself, I had read for 6 hours and 19 minutes, and then in the second half I read for 5 hours and 41 minutes, which lands us at 12 hours, and in that time I completed 4 books, but obviously some of the books were a little on the shorter side. So as far as pages, I read 1,165 pages in the span of 12 hours. So now I'm going to end this and jump into the next half of this reading vlog. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this reading vlog and that it was interesting to anybody else besides me. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
You hear that, Samson?